It is almost near impossible if you're an anime fan that you haven't heard or watched Hunter x Hunter, a cultural phenomenon that has spun its way into our hearts from the 2011 reboot, memes, games, and films. It has diversified our viewing palettes into consuming this iconic masterpiece of a shonen anime. Although we see this show as your typical coming-of-age action anime, I want to look deeper at the emotional connections that drive their desire to be who they are. Whether hunters, assassins, criminals, each character has their own backstory and problems that they are working through throughout the series, which is displayed through their determination. No matter your preference of characters, whether pro or antagonist, our homeboys created a lovable atmosphere in quite a conflict-driven narrative. Determination is heavily existent in Gon Freeccs. We first meet him on Whale Island, where he convinces Aunt Mito to allow him to take part in the hunter exam. Gon wants to find his father Jing and wants to know why being a hunter was so important to leave his kid behind. Throughout the phases of the hunter exam, we can see tons of fish out of water experiences of exploring outside of Whale Island. He meets Kurapika and Leorio during the pre-exam arc before their descent into becoming hunters. Although the hunter exam explicitly shows Gon fighting into attaining his license, it was during the chimera arc that we truly saw his resolve to do what he wants to become a hunter. According to Hunterpedia in Hunter x Hunter's fandom, Gon blamed himself for being too weak and entered a destructive and self-destructive cycle. He became extremely vengeful and single-minded, only focusing on making Pito fix Kite, establishing the concern that Killua was more important in this scenario, because if Killua did not step in, Gon would have completely destroyed Pito without any remorse for taking care of somebody else's life, which we see just how far his determination pushed him throughout the series. Gon also learns and grows throughout his emotions as well as learning about life, particularly looking at the Heaven's Arena arc when he is learning how to get stronger throughout his physical and mental strength in order to fight Hisoka and give him back his badge. During the Hunter exam, he first realizes that he's not as strong and powerful as he may think, when Hisoka is vividly shown that he is much more stronger and experienced in combat situations than Gon is. This drives Gon into a complete detriment of an emotional state. He is sad, lonely, and upset that he doesn't have the strength that he needs to go see Jing, because if he can't fight Hisoka, there's no way that he can see Jing, as according to Chairman Netero, Jing is one of the strongest hunters in the entire world. At the conclusion of the Chairman election arc, we see Gon and Killua part ways. Gon goes all the way up to the World Tree, where he ends up finding Jing, and Jing tells him all about his adventures through life and what inspired him to become a hunter. Now, this was quite a redeeming arc on Jing's part, because Gon finally did what he needed to do. He got the strength and resolve to go see Jing and learn more about his father and become the thing that he most wants to become, which is exactly like his father, and to find ways in order for him to help people as a hunter. Gon's personality is extremely empathetic and selfless. He was always looking for others besides himself, yet he is ambitious and knows what he wants, which makes his resolve admirable to even his opponents. Hisoka in particular acknowledges Gon's strength, even though he was a long way and still is from becoming an equal in sheer power and experience. However, it clearly shows that Gon is quite a determined kid and wants to continue his passion for becoming a hunter through his youthful, optimistic lens. Similarly, Killua comes from a background where determination was a substantial factor of his character development. Growing up in a family where assassins requires an emotionless aura, in other words, no emotional attachments to people, which would fit the Zoldyck family to a T. Killua wants to break free from his family's constraints and find something that he truly loved doing. Biscuit and Killua's dynamic is a direct example of this. Biscuit tells Killua that if he didn't win his fight against Shoot, that he would have to leave Gon forever. Regardless of Biscuit's feelings, Killua still stays by Gon's side, not only because Gon relies on him, but for his sake as well. Gon finds things in Killua that he can't find for himself. Their friendship together symbolized hope, which is a prime way of viewing life and approaching life as a hunter. However, Killua's development in his character and how he needed to approach life is far beyond these initial factors. Killua, throughout the series, had a lot going for him, or shall I say more going against him. His family, peers, all looked at at him differently because he was an assassin, and it even took Kurapika and Leorio a little bit of time to be able to get accustomed to Killua and really truly feel that he was a friend and not an enemy. The Zoldyck's reputation clearly precedes itself as one of the most merciless assassin groups in the entire world, which adds a lot of pressure to Killua in order to take over the family business. Killua doesn't want to be an assassin as he is tired of killing people. He wants to be a kid and explore life, meet friends, and enjoy stuff for himself instead of trying to make things better for his family. Although this may seem selfish at first, it is quite interesting to see Killua's development as he is only a preteen and he needs his own space, his own time to develop his emotions and his maturity. Granted, Killua does make quite a lot of mistakes. Even though his feelings towards his family are quite negative, we can understand and see why throughout Killua's past, the reasons why he doesn't view his family as a support system, rather as a group of people in order to make himself money. There's a certain brother that we'll get to in a bit that completely derails Killua's life and makes sure that everything he does is in relation to being an assassin and for the Zoldyck family. Killua removing the needle that Illumi placed on him is a prime example of Killua taking the liberation and accepting himself and finally releasing himself from the constraints that Illumi has placed on him. Illumi notices immediately, but Killua doesn't care. He wants to enjoy this free time and save everyone that he cares about, which is Gon, Kite, and all the members of the Chimera Ant extermination team. Alluka's story plays a significant role in the chairman election arc and pushes Killua to the brink of finally liberating himself and establishing that he is no longer affiliating himself with being an assassin or with the Zoldyck family entirely. Illumi really pushes this towards the edge with Killua as he continually shoves, pushes, and places all of the stress of being an assassin and putting Alluka back in the cage because he is an endangerment to society. Killua sees this and finally takes a step towards humanity as he tells Illumi that no matter what, he will provide a home for Alluka. Although Killua refers to Alluka as a girl, the symbolism of that reference is because of the sensitivity that he needs to have for Alluka, as he has been completely abandoned by his family and treated like the scum of the earth, which makes Alluka and Killua's interactions more heartfelt and determined. Killua, no matter what, at any cost, is going to provide a home and a safe place for Alluka from all the years that the Zoldyck family has completely put all of that stress and anger and frustration onto Alluka's power of making wishes. Killua overall displays this determination in a sense that he is able to grow transformatively, from becoming an assassin and referring back to all of his assassin traits to now understanding life and continuing to move forward as a young man that needs to be able to support his younger brother and affiliate himself with people that support him and want him to grow as a hunter and just as a human being. Leorio at first glance seems like a stereotypical version of a young man. Wants money, desires women, and wants to create a cause for his dead friend that was sick with an illness that could have been cured without money? Oh, no. Sorry, we haven't gotten to there yet. We immediately see this depth in Leorio and give him huge moments of growth. Whether it was studying for the medical exam or running for chairman after Netero's passing, he always had an eye for helping others out financially. He even says he would do the operation for free, which is expanding on his desire to give others a future that he didn't have. Even Melody from the Phantom Troupe arc said he had the soothest heart in the land by knocking some sense into Gon's good-for-nothing father for not visiting his son when he's almost at the peak of death. After the Hunter exam, his appearances are slightly scattered, which I know was to give Gon and Killua's perspective, but I would have liked to see more of Leorio prepping for the medical exam and his ventures as a hunter, like we saw with Pokol and Ponzu before their ultimate demise. Kurapika kind of takes a shift into the positive vibes that Gon and Leorio exuded. Even Killua becomes more optimistic after his family's troubles were resolved. Kurapika is from the Kurta clan, who were famous because of their burning scarlet eyes. It is among the most beautiful colors in the world, which was why the Phantom Troupe made them targets for their treasure gain. Kurapika's sole focus was on revenge for his clan. It's a better version of Sasuke Uchiha if you really think about it. The climax for Kurapika's determination was shown in the York New and Phantom Troupe arc. His personality becomes more angry than cool, calm, collected, and happy. He even blocks out Gon and Killua when they try to reach him, since they were all supposed to meet up with the promise they all made after the hunter exam. Just for context, I'm speaking on Kurapika, Gon, Killua, and Leorio, as they all made a promise after the hunter exam to meet up in York New for their own individual gains. Gon was going to look for clues for his father that left the Greed Island game, Killua was there just for moral support for Gon, Leorio the same thing, and Kurapika for any job in terms of finding clues for the Phantom Troupe and gain more work experience as becoming a blacklist hunter. Unfortunately, Kurapika was too busy recovering over the fact that the Phantom Troupe was in Yorkdew and completely abandoned the promise that he made to all of his friends, signifying that the Phantom Troupe and giving them what they deserve after killing off all of his fellow kurta was more important than getting with his friends and becoming what he truly wanted to be, which was to have a happy life without the constraints of his unfortunate events with his clan. York New arc mainly focused on Kurapika's anger as he killed Uvogin and the Phantom Troops trying to find out what happened to their fellow mate to continue their gang-related activities of stealing all the treasure from the York New election. Preceding all of those events, Kurapika assumes that the Phantom Troop is dead as of the news update that they found out after the election was held. Kurapika then finds out that the Phantom Troop wasn't really dead and goes on a mission to find them and kill them. He was successful in attaining the leader Crollo and keeping him at bay as the rest of the members of the Phantom Troop are trying to problem solve and get their leader back. Although Kurapika does prioritize Gon and Killua's safety as the Phantom Troop has them in bondage, he truly didn't understand that capturing the boss wasn't the sole focus of his desire. His desire was recovering all the eyes and mourning over the loss, not necessarily killing all of the Phantom Troop, because that would leave him empty inside, which is not the personality that Kurapika is, no matter how much he wanted the Phantom Troop dead. We as the audience sympathize towards Kurapika's anger and frustration, and were rooting for him to kill these illegal bandits. Hisoka and Illumi are the turning points in Hunter x Hunter. Hisoka is quite complex. He's made out to be the villain, but if you look more in depth, there is some slight logical reasoning because of the way he is. We first see him as a cold-blooded murderer who enjoys making other people miserable, but that doesn't apply to everyone. All of our homeboys were made exceptions to this rule. Why, you may ask? His obsession with fighting strong opponents. Although we don't see the full scope of his power in the anime, we do see why he enjoys fighting so much, which is because he is bored and wants to waste time. Time is a key term for Hisoka, as that is the catalyst for why he joined up with Gon and Killua in the dodgeball tournament in the Greed Island arc, and why he also joined the Phantom Troop. Once he was done and spent the time that he needed, he leaves. In his mind, he is determined to only spend time with people that give him what he is truly worth, which his insatiable persona means that he is always the cream of the crop. Now that I've watched the series again and again and again, specifically the Greed Island arc through the end, Hisoka is a decently likable character. I say this in the context of his development throughout the series, and not just being a cold-blooded magician the entire time. We actually see a little bit more of his personality, that he's quirky, he's a little bit funny, and misogynistic, which those aren't positive attributes to him, but it develops him in a way that isn't very one note and gives him more texture of an edge in terms of his character. Another term or message that Hisoka conveys throughout the series is that he treats everything like a game. Specifically, in the Heaven's Arena arc, it is basically an entire playground to showcase his amazing nen abilities. He's a magician, and magicians are performers. He wants to treat every single event that he has as a performance, and showcases his talents even in very cold-blooded and unforgivable ways. Illumi. Okay, power and authority completely describe Illumi. He controls Killua constantly in order to better his family business. He does some pretty cruel tactics to make Killua obey him, hypnotizing him at the hunter exam, placing a needle inside Killua to abide by whatever he tells him. He seems driven by having power over another person, despite him being the oldest child and already having that privilege. I also think that Illumi could possibly be jealous and knows that no matter how powerful he is, Killua might become more powerful than him in combat, which might stem from the competitive competitive atmosphere of killing people for money. This also relates to how capitalism puts workers against each other in order for profit. Talking to you, Amazon. It's completely inappropriate. That message aside, Illumi does not have any redeeming qualities. He is completely rude, nasty, and completely negligent about anyone's feelings or concerns regarding anybody else other than himself. Although his personality is extremely aloof and he seems to not care and be very neutral towards anything he looks at, that is completely disregarded whenever he is looked at through Killua or even the Zoldyck family entirely. It is almost like Illumi has a maternal instinct to keep Killua in a cage, like a helicopter parent, which is not what I would describe to have an older brother as an older brother should be someone that nurtures and cares for you and wants nothing but the best for you. Unfortunately, Illumi just slaps this all the way out the window. That's all. Even though I've already touched on the Zoldicks, they have quite an intriguing storyline, following tropes of generational behaviors displayed in their assassin work. Zeno, as the grandfather, sets the benchmarks for how the rest of the family should act. Silva takes after Zeno's teachings and places them onto his children, which Illumi is almost a direct copy of Silva. Miluki wants to earn money and play games in order to enjoy himself, even if it means resorting to unethical means. Alluka is banished because of her specialist Nen abilities of making wishes, and Kaluto takes after his mother Kikyo. Each of their storylines follows different parts of their life, and we understand the motivations and desires that each of them need for the family. Silva wants to destroy Killua in order to make him the perfect assassin for the family, which he doesn't understand that will destroy him mentally. He does give a parental approach in terms of allowing Killua to leave the estate and go with his friends Gon after the entire mess of the Zoldyck arc. But we see his sinister plot as he plants that into his mind for him to explore the fun world, and after he becomes bored with it or needs some place to return to after people have abandoned him, the Zoldyck family will provide that for him. We also see family hierarchy and the structure that it builds in order for each member to abide by the rules. Specifically, we see the butlers. All of the butlers must follow the Zoldyck rules no matter what to establish the fact that they are below them, and although they do get paid, they obviously have a lot of personality and also disagreements towards the system. We see this as Canary lets Gon pass through in order to help Killua to be able to have friends in his life, as Canary was unable to be friends because of her job, as Kikyo prevented it so. Oh wait, she did it again, didn't she? That woman is such a bitch, god damn. On the subject of Kikyo, can I just say that she is probably the worst mother in existence. She does nothing to stand up to her husband and doesn't have any sort of maternal instinct to take care and nurture her children. Still, we don't really see much of her personality besides the fact that she is always with Kaluto and trying to formulate him into the exact copy, which in return puts Kaluto in a state of mind to only want to bring Killua back and to be better than Killua. Although this is from Kaluto's state of mind, we see that Kikyo is consistently placing things onto Kaluto to join the Phantom Troupe and only for her benefit. The Phantom Troupe is quite interesting, to say the least. All of them have a very dull look at viewing life, however we do see a lot of their personalities and them as an individual. Pakunoda is protecting Crollo after Kurapika stole him from this underground craziness in order to successfully build his plan to kill Crollo and destroy the spider, which in essence doesn't destroy the spider because they actually can rebuild the head and continue crawling like an insect. This dialogue completely encaptures the life of being an insect. Insects are quite resilient. They continue moving and growing because they want to continue living. They're quite more resilient than people. Take a cockroach, for example. Ugh. Oh my god, just saying that gives me the heebie-jeebies. Kurapika sends Pakunoda a note, and Pakunoda is aware that he is in complete control of the spider's continuation. Instead of doing the obvious and ambushing Kurapika, she takes the moral high ground and returns Gon and Killua unharmed to Lingon Airport so that Kurapika can return Crollo unharmed. Nobunaga also showcases emotion and vulnerability as he was grieving over Uvogin's death by Kurapika. It was quite nice to see a portrayal of a grown man shedding his emotions over losing someone that he was quite precious of. Even Uvogin decided that it would be the best interest to not tell Kurapika anymore about the spider to protect his friends and keep them safe and their organization so they're not in jeopardy of having to go to jail and lose each other. Nobunaga even states that Uvogin would never lose in a fair fight, as he would never give up automatically or lose because the spider and their friendship are more important than any other opponent would ever be. They use that as retaliation for society and cause a menace throughout the world. The Phantom Troupe in general is increasingly convoluted, but in essence, the Phantom Troupe is just a gang of thieves that in return are just one dysfunctional family. Most of the chimera ants are pretty insufferable. I just did not connect with any of them at all. Their goals and aspirations unfortunately are part of a cog of a machine in order for creatures to fend for themselves, eat, or be eaten. The food chain, unfortunately, is the depiction of the ants. The king is also quite complex of a character. I wouldn't say that he necessarily is a terrible portrayal of someone in leadership, but I do think that they do miss quite a lot of different things in his development. We first see him as this dictatorial ruler, as in the food chain, the king is the most important. So the fact that he killed his underlings isn't a surprising thing if you truly think about it. Why else would the queen not take any sort of action towards his son? He literally killed her and exited out of her womb prematurely. That is already quite invasive and dangerous. The king's fandom even stated that he viewed certain concepts of human society as absurd. Such examples were when Shiapoof explained how certain people could become rulers through connections or bloodlines instead of power, which essentially states as long as you are born into power, you're able to rule without having any sort of other qualifications for that specific position. We completely see that this is shown that Meruem has no actual qualifications to be a king other than being born from the queen. He is not empathetic towards any of his people and disregards every single other person besides his 3 royal guards and Komugi. Komugi's development is quite interesting. We see the normal stereotypical version of a frail little girl and how the king starts to be fascinated by her. How is such a weak little girl able to capture my attention? She's nowhere near my strength level and I could kill her just by poking her. But instead of using his initial transaction of killing her, he continues to play a game with her, which then stems from him falling in love and actually finding something that is relative to humanity. All of the ants to an extent experience this and also realize that their power doesn't automatically make them powerful. They have to have conviction and strength and the resolve for something in particular in order for them to be truly strong. All 3 of the royal guards exude this, specifically Pito. I had a hard time making this script. To retroactively look at Hunter x Hunter, one of my all-time favorite animes, is quite a difficult task to do. Although by no means is this anime perfect, it is quite nice to see accurate depictions of male representation as well as the defining moments in their youth as well as adulthood. Determination was quite a key factor in the development in essentially all of the characters, and I haven't seen a lot of discourse on this topic, even though it's probably the most potent example of Hunter x Hunter's main themes. I hope more animes can take a lesson from Hunter x Hunter, and I hope another space for shonen anime will be made once more.